all. Christine and Patsy here. Today we're exploring these commonly used words you might hear in a yoga class. Maybe the first few times you're coming to yoga, you're thinking, what the hell are they talking about? I have no idea. So we're just trying to bring some clarity where there might be some confusion, clear the mud, if you will. I don't know if you can really clear the mud. That's supposed to be funny. I don't know. All right. So the main words we'll explore today, and we'll be back and sharing some more esoteric words in the future. So today we are going to explore the first word that you might hear in a class, which you might guess is namaste.
Namaste.
So namaste, first and foremost. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably hear that pretty often, even as a cliche way in our popular culture, where like on movies, if they're kind of making fun of the yoga culture or just talking about like the first word that might come to mind.
Or a shirt that says namaste.
Right. Or namaste in bed.
Yeah.
Those sort of things. I don't know. But yeah, namaste. So
Or namaste in the crib, like a baby onesie.
Oh, I love that. So cute.
When you find an adult onesie that says that,
let us know.
I'm just kidding, but
I'm not. So namaste, it really could translate to mean a couple different things. There's a long version, and then the short version is a greeting or a goodbye. So, in India, it could be, hello, namaste, goodbye, namaste. And really, let's even take it back a little bit and talk about Sanskrit in general. When we're using these words, it's just the ancient language of yoga. It's the ancient language of India. So know that it's not anything other than just a different language.
Yeah, and I think especially if you're stepping on your mat or in a studio for the first time, it can be overwhelming. It's a different kind of culture, and it's a hybridization of the West and the East, especially if you're in a Western studio. And it can be intimidating, just like it might be intimidating to step into a gym for the first time. You don't really know what to do. You don't know what way to face. You don't know how to set up or, what's going on. And then you get thrown like a whole nother language at you. And then everyone's saying it back to the teacher, and you're like, what is this? Like, am I in a cult? What are we doing here? But just like Patsy said, it's just a greeting in one way. It is a greeting of, hey, welcome. And it's a loving gesture.
Yeah, and some teachers really choose not to use any Sanskrit, but you will pretty much always hear at the end of the class, even when they choose not to use Sanskrit during the class, the namaste, the bowing to each other to seal in the practice. Like even the teachers who, and that's beautiful, it's not right or wrong. I would say that choosing to use Sanskrit might be a little bit more of a traditional way to teach and to practice, but it's not, like
mandatory.
Exactly. Yes. But regardless, traditionally, usually like I would say 99% of the time, you'll seal in the class with namaste.
If there's any Sanskrit, if there's the teacher isn't using any Sanskrit,
right,
they might be using namaste at least. Yes, because it is a greeting and a closure, and it's really about recognizing the highest self. Whatever you want to call that. There obviously can be controversy, but it's about recognizing something beyond the facade of projection of the ego, of what we project into life and our reality. So it's looking to the highest self. A lot of people will say like the capital S self, or the divine, or consciousness, or the universe. It's looking deeper than just your flesh and your bones and who your external labels are.
Yes, and how we share that. It's really a symbol of also bowing to one another as we share that. I honor the light inside of you. I honor the love. I honor the truth inside of you. And to seal that in, it also is this exchange of that light inside of you, that truth. I see that in myself as well. And in that, we're all connected. I remember telling my aunt what it meant years ago, and she said, that sounds like a marriage blessing.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, or like an exchange of vows. And I was thinking, it does. It's really, and I think it's very sacred and beautiful that we use it in everyday life in our yogic, community.
Yeah, I think it's, there's a lot of like you said, the word sacred. I think there's a lot of reverence to it when we choose to slow down and acknowledge that past the labels that we have for ourselves of political, religious, societal beliefs and structures and values, it's past all that. And it's saying, hey, no matter how you express and live your life, I acknowledge there is light and love in you, and that mirrors that same light and love in me. No matter what we've done in our past or what we will do in the future, at the core of our being, that's what it is there is love and light within us. And I think it helps us to broaden our perspectives, to kind of look past those labels and those differences between people and tap back into the unity of everyone, and the universality of like, we're all in it together. Even though we have different perspectives.
Absolutely.
It brings us back into a holistic experience.
100%. And finding more compassion. You know, when I disagree with an action of someone, I think it's a good reminder to come back to that namaste of everyone deserves compassion. Everyone deserves forgiveness.
Yes. Yeah. And it's can be humbling, and it's one of those words that it kind of can challenge you when you are going through a situation with someone. And it's easy to live in anger or fear. Those are like your reptilian emotions. And it's like, hey, you know what? They're human. If someone has done wrong to you or hurt you, it's like evolving past that. It's okay to feel hurt, but it's like, can you evolve past that and still look into the depths of their being and say, actually, they're beyond all that, beyond all their pain or their projection of anger or fear is love and light. And still express that back to them, because we are mirrors of each other. And so if we come back to that over and over again, namaste, namaste, you're actually, I believe, increasing that love and light within yourself too. And that's powerful.
It is. It absolutely is. I mean, I love being in the community of a lot of people. Putting my hand to my heart and we all say it. You know, it's really nice.
In unison.
Yes.
Oh, it's powerful.
It is powerful.
And it brings you out of like the hustle and bustle of life. And it's just like, whoa. It's just like a mic drop itself.
Absolutely.
It just, you feel the intensity and the magic behind it.
Yeah. So I hope that kind of clarified what namaste means for you all, because that is a word that you probably hear, I would say, more than any other Sanskrit word.
Yes. Yeah. And so, consider being, for all these words that we'll explore, consider being open to them. We're not sharing them for you to just like take that at face value. Kind of explore your truths and your values. And if it aligns with you, go for it. If not, that's okay. Just food for thought. So another word that you'll probably hear, I would say quite a bit in the studio is the word Om, which is not even, it's a word, but it's also what we call a mantra. And it is chanted. It can be spoken, as I just said it, but it is often in a class setting. Maybe you heard it before in a song, but is this long vibrational phrase, which is Om. And that's generally also chanted in a group setting, which I would say even has more vibrational intensity and power, especially when chanted in a group setting.
I agree. And you'll see it especially in our Western world, spell O-M, but the traditional spelling is A-U-M. Because as Christine just said, it's more of a, an A-O-M as you go through it.
And it starts like deep. And if you different people will chant it different ways. If you're chanting it with A-U-M traditionally, it's like moving that energy. If you were listening to our chakra podcast, it's moving that energy from your root, like it's like really rooted all the way up to the tips of your lips, and maybe even feeling a little vibration in like third eye and crown. So it's like awakening that energy that we talked about in those previous podcasts, so that you're kind of cleansing your inner self.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up the chakra podcast, because I was about to say that the seventh chakra, that's actually the symbol of the seventh chakra is Om. So, and you probably see it a lot. We see it on like tapestries, wall art, tattoos, because the meaning is, similar to Namaste, is very sacred. It's really just, for me, I remember the first time I learned what it meant, and like again, like what you just said, mic drop, like mind blown.
Yes.
And the way that I was explained it, and I love this to this day, is no matter what religion you are, no matter what your belief system is that there was a sound when the universe and the world were created. And that sound is the vibrational Om. And that sound never stopped. It's, in all of us as we continue to live that vibration. And so as we chant it, we're chanting about life force itself.
I know. Coming into existence. So I think it's about bringing us back into the beginning of time, whenever that was. It's reawakening us into a larger perspective. And at the same time, then it's, especially when it's chanted together. I had the same experience. I had heard it in other studios, but I had an experience where it was a large class. It was probably like 50 or 60 people. And everyone in the class had been seasoned yogis with this teacher. And it was just like, sometimes students get a little like intimidated to chant it. Maybe you're there right now. But what I like felt like you could feel its power. And it wasn't just a word at that point in time. It was like my whole being was like in the vibration of Om. And I was like, it was like being almost like in a church setting when everyone's like singing, and it's you feel the energy behind everyone's intention behind it. And that goes back to what the word means. The intention of its energy was life and creation.
Yeah, I would say it's absolutely, even if you don't consider yourself a spiritual person, I would say it's absolutely a spiritual exercise, and you just feel that energy. It's I don't think you chanting it, or even just being in the room, if you're not chanting it, I don't think it's possible to not just feel something happening around you. Yeah, and for me, I don't consider myself a singer. Like, I'm not like trained as a singer, but I do exercise my singing voice.
Beautiful. We all should.
And I love that feeling when my voice and I don't know the technical term, like if it's like my tone meets someone else's tone.
Yes, and you're all in the same.
Yes, and then you feel it. Yeah, something about that is magical.
It's like, it's the connection. It's the frequency that you're all linking up. And it's like that, again, that unity is like linking up.
I love that.
I know.
It really resonates with me.
And I like to explore. I don't do too many in public classes just because it can be overwhelming, especially if there's new people. In our Black Swan studios, we have new students coming all the time. It's really beautiful. So, we really try to be mindful and make it accessible. I am a teacher that does Om in my classes, if not in the beginning and the end, at least at the end. Because I think it is a powerful part of the practice. But in teacher trainings, I love getting the students, the trainees, to Om in the round, meaning we'll start together, and when they're finished with the end of the and the exhale, then they just begin again.
Yes.
And we'll do that for like minutes at a time. And it's just it brings you into this meditative state of like, it really is cleansing your mind and bringing you into this meditative, emotional connection, not just with everyone else, but like with the universe.
Yes. And a deeper sense of yourself as you find that voice, like, as you said, the vibration from the, the pit of your belly coming all the way up, or the pit of your being.
Yes.
I love that. And what she's talking about, I love to say it's similar to, how when we sing as a group, row, row your boat, and it's like, I'll start row, row, and then you'll go into row, row. Yeah.
It is like that.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of gets you lost in it. It's so good.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one that I think, especially if you're coming from a specific religion into a studio, it can be intimidating, or you might feel like, I don't know. It's not invoking anything. If anything, it's just the idea of creation. And there's so many creation myths and stories that talk about words and creation. In the Bible, there's a verse that says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God." And that's what Om is.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're coming from like a Christian background, that's really what it's saying, is the idea of the creative force is and was a vibrational power behind it. And that energy, that prana, made life into existence, into manifesting, and it goes back to even how we speak. Our words actually have vibrational quality to them, right? And then our lips communicate and words are spoken. And so it's also about the intention behind it. It's like, what's in your heart? You can be, have a specific religion and identity and still chant the word Om, and maybe it's to, Buddha or Jesus or whatever it is to you, or Muhammad, and you still have that in your heart, that I'm focusing in my energy on this creative force. And yoga, it's not saying you have to believe X, Y, and Z. It's just kind of opening your mind to being more connected with everyone instead of so dogmatic in your own worldview. It's like, hey, you have this particular belief pattern and I have this one, but we're actually the same. And so we can chant this word together, Om, which actually Om is said to have bridged the gap into Amen.
I love that.
Yes. And so we can see the influence of the yogis, even in Judaism and Islam and Christianity. And so that's something I love about yoga, is because there are different religions coming in and practicing. It's a complete place of acceptance. You don't have to be a particular person of particular faith to come and do yoga.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it has such strong roots at the same time.
Exactly. So, yes, our words have power. And so when you chant the sound of Om, it's not even just the word Om, but you're thinking about the intention behind that frequency in which you're chanting.
And you could, your intention behind it, it might be as simple as, I honor the other human beings in this room, or like, I understand that this life isn't just about me. There's other people that really connect to this spider web of life and world, and we are connected truly. But it could be really simple, or maybe your Om is as simple as meaning that life is beautiful, life is worth living.
Yeah, and the word AUM. There is these ideas behind the characteristics of the divine. So you have the creative, you have the sustainer, and then the destroyer. And so I know the last one, people are like, I don't know if I like that, but it's it's life itself. That's creation. There's life-giving power to existence, and then we move back into the void, or back into universe itself.
Right. And death is such a huge part of life. The destroyer. It really is. I mean, it's just as big as birth itself.
And if anything, it's like the idea of controlled burns and like forest or crop burning. It happens in order to bring more life. And so it's like, sometimes it's the metaphor of death is also very powerful, like letting go of something, releasing something. And when we do that, when we let go, when we mourn, we grieve, it's actually creating more room for growth.
Absolutely.
And that cycle continues, right? So we don't have to get fearful of it stopping. It is like
cycle
that.
Of life.
Yeah. Yes. And I think it's just that reminder of life, it will continue, and it's not, we're not in just one stage of life for our existence here on Earth.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And we say goodbye to stages, as we grow, as we transition, all the time. Hopefully we can.
And then we can open up to the next.
Yes.
I want to read a little bit about Nikola Tesla from Tesla Motors said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." So the very foundations of our universe, of matter and thought, appear to life in sound vibration. And so the idea of, in yoga, we talk about prana, which is life force, which is energy, which a lot of times we think about pranayama, which earlier Maddie and I talked about pranayama in earlier podcasts, is breath control. And so if we think about that, you're using the power of your breath behind the words that you speak, which have vibration. And so it's the idea of speech is prana and action. So everything we say matters. There is an intention behind it. And so this is coming back to, okay, if we're thinking about Om and our intention, then we're also thinking about the way in which we communicate to one another is powerful. You okay?
Thank you. Yes.
And then there's this amazing, I'm going to look his name up because I don't want to mispronounce, and maybe I still will, but forgive me. Masaru Emoto is this Japanese researcher who studied the impact of words and intention of words on water, and found that when saying something like love with the intention of being loving, the water molecules made these like very beautifully designed, almost like snowflake patterns.
There's pictures of them that are gorgeous.
Yeah, it's like stunning. It's magical. It's like, it's a mystery actually, how like what? And then he also studied the idea of saying something negative with a negative emotion, and they were just like chaotic and dysfunctional
and
forms.
sad looking.
Yeah, and just like blobs. And our words really have power. In the Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote this book, shares a story of this little girl who is constantly singing around her house, talking about singing, and wasn't the best singer, but just singing out of expression and love for it. And her mother constantly was like, "Why are you singing? You're a horrible singer." And that implanted the idea in the daughter's mind that she's a horrible singer.
She shouldn't sing.
She shouldn't sing. And then she stopped singing.
And bringing joy to herself.
Yeah. And so that's the whole idea of what we say matters. And words really do have power.
Yes, big time. And even the vibrations of your mind, the words that we hold in our mind, very, very important. If we hold self-hate, self-judgment, or hate for the world and judgment for others, that's going to vibrate out of us. And then it's going to bounce back to us.
You're right.
And that's just unhealthy.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's, and you have the power of your mind to create the story you're telling yourself. So start with yourself, speak kindly and compassionately, and empower yourself to live your life. And then, you can use your words to uplift and create, just like the word Om, that manifest presence. Or you can use your words, like we were looking at the water molecules, for destructive purposes, to destroy and to hurt and to tear down. And I'm sure we've all been there where we have been on both sides, where we've said words that we wish we could take back. And then we've also been on the other side where words have been spoken to us where it's really hurtful and painful. So I think chanting the sound of Om is actually very cleansing to our mind, to bring us back into that right perspective of, okay, come back to this like deep, powerful, manifest, creative force.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And if you're wanting to explore with it, but maybe you're a little nervous, just YouTube some videos on it and start doing it in the privacy of your home. I have a harmonium that I'm really trying to teach myself to play. And that's been fun to chant with the harmonium, the deep. So if you have an instrument, I encourage you to see what happens, with any instrument, like cello, violin, anything. See what happens with it. See if you, can be a little creative with it and have fun.
Yeah. And I like that idea of like, sometimes just hearing yourself chant or sing is like, I don't want to hear myself. So yeah, YouTube, and you can find a track that's just constantly oming. And even if you don't want to chant it and you're just listening to it, it might be a doorway to open just to notice how it impacts you. And then maybe one day you decide to get down and chant the word Om.
Get
Who knows?
groovy with it.
Yeah. Wonderful. So we got two more we would like to share about. Very common is the word asana, which you'll hear in terms of people talking about postures like Adho Mukha Svanasana or the word Shavasana, Tadasana. All these end in the word asana. So people are like, what is this? What are you telling me to do? What is this language?
Asahu.
Yeah, exactly. Asana.
Yeah.
It's asana. Long A.
A-S-A-U.
A-S-A-N-A.
N-A. Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry.
No, it's good. So it's just a long A. And yeah, so let's dive into that.
Yeah. So I remember before I left for India, they had on the schedule, we'll be practicing asana every day. And I remember showing one of my students the schedule. I'm like, I'm so excited. Look at this meditation, pranayama, all this stuff. And my student goes, ooh, asana. Like they have a sauna in India.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That's really cute.
And I don't know what my reaction was at that point. I don't even know if I knew.
Yeah,
It's really interesting. But
oh, that's adorable.
I'm like, a sauna.
Yeah. And that's just how, we understand the English vernacular, right?
Yeah.
So asana, you'll hear it a lot in connection to yoga poses. The root word asana is actually found in the sutras, which, just a little historical background. Yoga, as we know it today, wasn't practiced thousands and thousands of years ago. Well, I didn't say that. Surprise.
What?
I know. It's evolved over thousands of years into what we know today. In the beginning, it was all about chanting and devotion and meditation. And then it emerged into where we are right now.
Yes.
So originally, the word asana was more connected to what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Because, the old yogis back in the day decided, if we're going to sit here and be comfortable for as long as we want to sit here, which was a long time, we needed to figure out, well, how can I help myself to help my back? How can I help myself, and it was a slow progression of more postures added.
Right, yeah. So asana is actually just the seat, a comfortable, steady seat. It wasn't about any physical movement at all. And so it's a stable, steady seat. And that's what, is unique in when we're saying like Tadasana, which is actually mountain pose, or Vrikshasana, which is tree pose. It's about taking that concept of asana, finding that steady, stable seat in every pose, every posture that we take in yoga. It's pretty simple. But to just help kind of crystallize, like, why is that word being repeated and repeated again and again? It's about coming back to the roots of actually what yoga is about. And, the whole reason why we move and flow in yoga and do multiple postures is the goal, and the aim is to be able to sit in meditation, which brings us back to the origins of what yoga really was.
Yes.
And is.
And it's really fascinating that it just, as you said, like evolved. Like it was a slow progression of like, oh, maybe if I fold forward here, that will alleviate my lower back. Maybe if I twist here, that does something, and they just started studying
exploration of themselves.
Yes. And I love that in our Western world, we think of these physical postures as yoga. This is the yoga practice, but really it's just one of the 8 limbs.
Yeah.
It's not what really,
it's not the whole thing.
Right.
It's just one part. And Maddie and I talked about those specific limbs. And so, just to recap, we have delved into asana in a more longer podcast, but just to remind you that it is about finding steadiness and ease within each movement that you take, that it's not completely strict and structured, but that there should be fluidity and buoyancy within your body and a little bit of ease and softness.
Yes, some grace.
Yeah. And there's, of course, stability. You don't want to just be like,
effort and ease.
Yeah. And so it's, and also just, I think it comes back to, yoga isn't something that we just, it can be. You go to the studio, you practice, and you leave and you forget about it. But maybe over time, what happened for us is it became more and more a part of our life and our lifestyle. And so for me, being seated, when I'm just hanging out with friends or family or dinner or hanging, whatever I'm doing or walking around, I'm trying to consciously be aware of literally my posture, because I work with elderly people, and I see them just like curl in and cave in, and I don't want to be like that. And so it's a preventative too.
Yeah.
And also how you carry yourself. You know, if you're closed off, like we've talked about before, you probably are lacking a little bit of vulnerability, confidence, presence. And it will just, if you sit taller, it will just not only physically make you feel better, but you'll emanate more confidence.
Absolutely. And openness. I'm ready to receive. I'm ready to give.
Yes.
So asana, really know that in your practice that's just one of the limbs. So when you do practice, I mean, it could be your practice. I mean, you could be on your mat just strictly for a good butt, you know, like no problem, no judgment.
Little yogi butt.
Right. You do you.
Yeah.
But when we're looking at yoga as the whole, it's really interesting that it is just 1/8.
Yeah, you're right. And it's a beautiful 1/8.
Yes.
But it's not the whole. And, you know, to just tap onto that. So the word yoga, the root word is yuj, which means to yoke or to have union with, and not the egg yolk. It really means like if you think 2 ox and they have a yoke over them, they're working together to move a carriage or whatever they're pulling together. So they're not veering off in different directions. And so in asana, it's about being connected to body and breath and mind and focus, so that you're becoming more and more present.
Working together.
Yeah.
So it's not like your head and your heart are you know, pushing against one another. You really yoke all the cells of your being, the energy of yourself. And I love that you brought that up. I'm so glad you just said what yoga means, translates. Because when we look at that on a bigger level, when we start to practice with a community, something huge happens. You know, we yoke each other together. We really come together to practice. And, you know, it's huge. And then it becomes a universal level of bringing people together.
Breathing together. The oceanic sound is really beautiful. So the final word we want to touch on is vinyasa, which is a interesting one because there's a lot of meanings behind it. It's not just one. So that's what makes it unique. So vinyasa could simply mean the style of yoga in which we practice. So at Black Swan, our main style is vinyasa flow, which is a flow style of practice. This is just one. So you might see it on a schedule somewhere and you're like, what's vinyasa? It means a flowing style of yoga.
Yeah, typically one breath, one movement, a little bit faster pace where we're not necessarily holding the poses as long as you would in, say, a hatha class.
Exactly. So just base level, you see it on a schedule, you're going to flow. You're going to move a little bit more. And then we have the idea of to take a vinyasa. And then people are like, what are they talking about? Take a vinyasa. What does that mean? I'm confused. Everyone's looking around, especially if you're brand new and you're like, vinyasa. I'm confused because I saw it on the schedule as vinyasa and now they're telling me to take a vinyasa. What do I do?
Right.
Yeah. So what is it?
Right. And that's typically when you see the movement from our sun salutation A, which is a little bit longer than this, but typically the vinyasa, when a teacher says, you know, find your vinyasa or not, it would be going from high plank to a low plank chaturanga to an up dog to your down dog. So taking your vinyasa is typically those moves.
Yeah. And so that's like, I like to think of a vinyasa as kind of the idea of rinsing your spine. It's just releasing the postures that you took beforehand, the idea of a wave, you know, just washing over your mind and your body. And you're like, okay, I had horrible balance on that last tree. I came down, took a vinyasa, and it's like, let that go, start afresh, move forward, continue on. And also it's great because the movements themselves are about stabilizing, finding a back bend, and then finding length in your spine and downward facing dog. So it's also very intelligently put together, which brings us to the original translation of vinyasa.
Yes. And I always like to say that the translation is something like to place precisely. And so as we're moving through these movements, and Christine will say exactly what the vi and then the
Nyasa,
nyasa means. But to place precisely as we're moving through these movements, it's not just like doing cardio just for the sake of getting your heartbeat up, and it's not just moving for moving, not really thinking, mindfully thinking about it, but instead it's I am placing my foot precisely here. I am reaching my arms up and precisely turning my pinkies in, just so mindful, even in these movements, one breath, one movement.
Yeah. So it came from the idea of Krishnamacharya, which is the father of our modern yoga system. He created the idea of the vinyasa, so this flowing state of movements. So the idea is the nyasa is to place. So what Pathu is saying, nyasa, the end vinyasa, nyasa is to place, and the V is in a special way or in a precise way. And so it's being thoughtful of how you are creating a sequence. I'm sure you've been to a class before where you move and then you're like, wow, this feels really good and I'm flowing. You've eased into that flow state. You're more meditative and connected. And then you feel really good after a class. And then I'm sure you've been to a class where it just feels out of sorts. It's not flowing. It feels not connected, not really thought out. And then after class, you're like, I don't really feel good. And so that doesn't mean the teacher is a horrible person.
No.
By any means. It just means that they might have not taken the time to consider how the body opens up over time. And, for me, when I structure a class, I think of the modern human being in our Western world is sitting most of the day. Whether they are sitting for breakfast, they're sitting in their car, they're sitting for work, they're sitting back in their car to commute home, they sit down for dinner, they sit on the couch, and then they go to bed. So I just try to think of, okay, most human beings in our world are tight in their hips, they're tight in their low back, their inner thighs are tight, and their shoulders are rolled forward. And so trying to counteract all that movement is more heart opening, more hip opening, more inner thigh work. And so to gradually prepare the body for more intense postures, right? And so it's so that when you do offer an intense posture, it doesn't seem as intense because the body and the mind is prepared, right? If we're sitting all day, we're also a little bit more clouded or foggy. And so get the blood flowing, oxygenate the blood in your body by doing simple movements like sun A's and more gentle movements so that the body and mind are prepared.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's where he came with the idea from.
It's so gorgeous.
It is.
Like the history of yoga is amazing.
Yeah. We'll have to explore that.
I
too.
know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Something I was just thinking is I really liked the way that you just explained the rinsing after, as you go into that vinyasa, you wash away the postures you just did. I think that can be really helpful for those of us that, we're in the middle of the class and it's challenging, but remembering, like having that as a reminder to inspire yourself to breathe through it and to rinse away whatever just happened.
I love that.
Yeah, no, you said it. It's
I know.
gorgeous.
It's just nice to hear. I'm like, yeah, I like that. That's good. Good job. I probably heard it from somewhere else too. I don't know. Remember.
I mean, that's
how we do it.
the circle.
Yeah, it is like that. So yeah, these are the words that we want to just touch base on to find that greeting, that salutation of namaste, to take time to recognize the love and the light and that creative life in you, to connect with the sound, the vibration of Om, to remind not only for the word Om, but to come back to the intentionality behind the vibration of your words, to remember that yoga is really about finding union and unity with yourself and your community, to know that asana is to find that stable, steady, easeful place in your postures, and that vinyasa can mean a lot of different things, but just to know that you can flow with it. It could be a style, and it means to be placed in a particular way. So we hope that it was helpful for you and educational. We love you guys. Until next time, namaste.
Namaste.